I'm VJ Hamilton and welcome to the Autoimmune Reset, the place for you to learn how to thrive with autoimmune disease and feel empowered to take steps to transform your health to feel better than ever. You can start making changes today to improve your health. So with every episode, my mission is to share with you simple ways to up-level your diet and lifestyle with key learnings from my own journey reversing autoimmune disease and inspirational stories from those who have reset their autoimmune symptoms and are now thriving in life. I suffered from autoimmune disease for over 25 years and now I live symptom-free, and I wish the same for you as well. So thank you for being here and sharing this time with me. Now let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Autoimmune Reset podcast. My name is VJ Hamilton. I'm a nutritionist, scientist and expert in autoimmune disease. And today we're taking a deep dive into rheumatoid arthritis because May is Arthritis Awareness Month, so there will be a focus around arthritis on the podcast this month, and hopefully we have a very special guest joining us at the end of the month who will be telling us about their own journey with arthritis. So you can guess who that is and feel free to message me and let me know who you think I am going to be interviewing in the podcast at the end of the month. But for today, we're going to be speaking specifically about rheumatoid arthritis because I work with many clients with RA at different stages in their journey with rheumatoid arthritis. I see many women who have just had babies who develop rheumatoid arthritis. I find women going through the menopause develop rheumatoid arthritis. And then I'm working with a lot of men who have rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis. And there is definitely a link between the two, and sometimes people will develop both rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis. But today we're going to be talking about rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disorder. So unlike osteoarthritis, which is more about the wear and tear of the joint, although I'm sure there's some underlying issues there as well. But with RA, there is definitely that autoimmune component in the fact that the body and the immune system will attack the body's own tissue, primarily the synovium of the joint, and that can affect the joints because that's the lining and the membrane that's protecting the joint. And over time, that inflammation can lead to joint damage, deformity, and even disability. I did a session recently on nutrition essentials for joint health. If you haven't listened to that, I'm going to put the link to that in the show notes because I did record the presentation. Each month I am doing a series on nutrition essentials and I'm focusing the next one on hair growth. But it would be worth listening to that because I talk about specific foods and nutrients for joint health, which will also be helpful for rheumatoid arthritis. When we're thinking about rheumatoid arthritis, some of the main symptoms are joint pain, which will be persistent pain. You'll have tenderness and swelling of the joints, and it's often symmetrical in distribution. So if you have it in one wrist, you're more than likely to have it in the other wrist. You may also find that you wake up feeling just really stiff and it takes you a while to get going and you need to do some movement really to keep going. That can be a sign of rheumatoid arthritis, which often will last for even as long as an hour until you've got yourself moving. Another symptom that you might not be aware of is fatigued, and it can be almost as bad as having chronic fatigue, this type of exhaustion that will come with rheumatoid arthritis, which is unrelated to physical exertion. So you just feel really fatigued and tired. You may also find that your joints swell. So you might find that your ankles swell or your wrists swell or your fingers swell. That can again be a sign of rheumatoid arthritis. And that swelling and inflammation can eventually lead to joint deformity. And I know a lot of people who have been able to reverse their symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis will often share a before and after picture. And I had my own joint issues. I was never formally diagnosed with arthritis, but I did have some deformity throughout the time that I had this joint pain and swelling and issues with my joints. So who knows? I'm still unsure about what type of arthritis I had, but now I don't have it. I know there was definitely a problem. So let's talk about that, because when I went to see my doctor with my own joint issues, I was diagnosed with tendonitis and was sent away. And I'll be honest, I just never went back. I just dealt with it myself because I didn't think there was much that they could do. But it is worth getting diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and speaking to your doctor about it if you do have rheumatoid arthritis, because there's obviously a lot that they can do from a medical standpoint to help with your condition. I always recommend that my clients, when they come to me with symptoms, will talk to their doctors about them as well if they haven't done already, because as much as I'm a nutritionist and helping you to resolve any underlying imbalances that there might be in your body, if you're a client of mine, not in this podcast, as you know, this podcast is not an alternative to medical advice. I'm just sharing my experiences and information. But I will always recommend that my clients go and speak to their doctors, because if there is inflammation in the joint at that moment in time, then that is potentially creating some damage, and that's when medication can really help, because it can bring down the inflammation in that moment in time, and then you can work with a nutritionist like me to help you with those underlying imbalances of what might be causing it. When you go see your doctor, if you have any of these symptoms, the way that they will diagnose you is through a combination of looking at your medical history, a physical examination, and running some laboratory tests. And as I said, those symptoms are commonly joint pain, swelling, stiffness, and fatigue. I expect if you are listening to this podcast that you already have rheumatoid arthritis, or you might just be a regular listener and you have an autoimmune condition. And it's worth remembering that if you have one autoimmune condition, you are more likely to develop another autoimmune condition. So if you are having joint problems, it's definitely worth checking those out, rather than doing what I did and just assumed it was part of who I was and I had a weakness in my joints and that there was nothing I could do. There are things that you can do, both from a medical and a natural perspective. And the tests that the doctors will normally run, and they are tests that I offer in my own clinic as well, so you can get these tests done privately, but they will check for specific antibodies. And the antibodies that they will ordinarily check for are rheumatoid factor, and they will test for anti-CCP, which is testing for antibodies against citrullinated proteins, which are often elevated in people with rheumatoid arthritis, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But you can have rheumatoid arthritis and be negative for rheumatoid factor. So there are a number of things to consider, and your doctor will do all the tests and the assessment in order to come to a diagnosis. At that stage, you need to decide with your doctor whether you need medications or not and whether to take those. And then you can work with somebody like me to help with what might be at the root cause of your rheumatoid arthritis. And as a nutritionist and functional medicine practitioner, that is what I am doing with my clients on a daily basis. So there are various root causes of rheumatoid arthritis, but it's worth noting that there is a genetic predisposition to rheumatoid arthritis, which means that you have a family history of rheumatoid arthritis. There might be other people in your family that have it, and they have identified a certain gene such as HLA-DRB1 gene, and it means that you're more susceptible to the disease. But as I am sure you're aware now, genetics is only a small piece of this. And it's actually when those genetics are put in certain environments and there are certain environmental triggers that you go on to develop these conditions. So just because you have a genetic predisposition to this doesn't mean that you are 100% going to get rheumatoid arthritis. So it's always worth bearing that in mind. There are some of the more obvious environmental triggers which are linked to rheumatoid arthritis in the research, such as smoking, infections, and gut dysbiosis, where you have a buildup of certain bacteria and there are imbalances in the gut, which can lead to something called leaky gut syndrome, or often referred to as increased intestinal permeability, and that can activate the immune system and then trigger an inflammatory response in those with rheumatoid arthritis. And it's worth just digging into that in a bit more detail, because there is this gut joint axis in rheumatoid arthritis, and there is definitely a link between the two. The gut joint axis is often referred to as a bidirectional communication between the gut and the joints. You may have heard this between the gut and the brain, but it happens with the joints as well, and there are immune cells and hormones and neurotransmitters which can cause issues in the joint, and this can contribute to the development and progression for rheumatoid arthritis, which is why I offer stool testing to a lot of my clients with rheumatoid arthritis, because the gut is absolutely central to it all. And a lot of the gut bacteria that are implicated in rheumatoid arthritis are in the gut, and it's when the gut becomes imbalanced and there is this increase in intestinal permeability, those bacteria can get into the bloodstream, and then they can cause the joint to become dysfunctional, and as a result of that, the immune system then fires up and attacks it, and you end up with rheumatoid arthritis. So that's really the mechanism for how it happens. But there are several gut bacteria that have been linked to rheumatoid arthritis in the research. And when I'm looking through a client's stool test results, I'll be specifically looking at these bacteria to understand whether they might be contributing to their symptoms. For example, there is a gut bacteria called Prevotella. There's been quite a lot of research into Prevotella for different autoimmune diseases. But when it comes to rheumatoid arthritis, several studies believe it contributes to dysbiosis, so that imbalance of gut bacteria, and that can potentially lead to the inflammation that is seen in rheumatoid arthritis, and potentially there is a link there with leaky gut syndrome as well. There is also a common bacteria found in the gut called Bacteroides fragilis, and while that plays a really important role in maintaining gut health, there can be dysregulation of this bacteria in individuals with autoimmune diseases. So I'm just looking at the balance of this bacteria in the gut, whether it's high or low, to understand why that might be a factor for my client and whether we need to do any work around that to help with their symptoms. Another gut bacteria which I have written about and I mentioned on the podcast before is Akkermansia. And Akkermansia is really important for that gut barrier function, and I'm almost certain that the impairment of that gut barrier function can contribute to inflammatory symptoms in autoimmune disease, including rheumatoid arthritis. So when somebody doesn't have enough Akkermansia in their gut, then it means that they are more prone to increased intestinal permeability, and that may lead to rheumatoid arthritis. So again, I'm looking for the levels of Akkermansia in somebody's gut. And one of the really easy ways to increase Akkermansia in the gut is to take cranberry powder daily. That can help to lift levels, and I've seen it time and time again with my clients when they have low Akkermansia. When they've taken cranberry powder every day, it's really helped to lift their levels and helped with their symptoms as well. And then one last one is Collencella, which is a bacteria again found in the gut, and they have shown that there are alterations in the populations of this bacteria in people with rheumatoid arthritis. So these are a few gut bacteria that are specifically linked to rheumatoid arthritis. But on top of that, when there are imbalances in the gut, it's going to cause inflammation in any case, because it is going to affect your nutrient absorption. It's going to affect the amount of toxins and bacteria and other particles that go into the bloodstream. And it may even impact how well you're breaking down things like fats and proteins. And when they're not broken down properly, they can cause issues in the gut as well. So there's quite a few different factors to think about. But when I'm working with clients, it will be a key area that we look into when they have rheumatoid arthritis, because it is so linked to this condition and to the joints. And we may also explore food sensitivities, but at first I'm always wanting to know exactly what's going on in the gut. And you can see from a stool test as well whether somebody has inflammation, and that's going to give you a sign of whether it's caused by a food sensitivity. But the test itself will give you an indication of what else might be causing it. For example, not breaking down fats properly, or if there is a buildup of a certain bacteria, some of the ones that we've listed here, or if there are additional bacteria in the gut that shouldn't be there, or is there a parasite. So all these things are thought through when I'm working with somebody with rheumatoid arthritis. Now, in recent years, there is more research evolving around the link between dental health and rheumatoid arthritis. And periodontal disease is a chronic condition which affects the gums. So one of the first questions I will ask one of my clients with rheumatoid arthritis is, are their gums bleeding routinely? And if they are, or if they have been diagnosed with periodontal disease, then I know that's a key area that we need to focus on because of this link. Now, the research suggests that there is a particular bacteria which is found in the mouth, which is called Porphyromonas gingivalis, and that has been implicated in rheumatoid arthritis. And it's a gram-negative bacteria that is in the mouth, and when your gums bleed, it is able to enter the bloodstream. So it travels in the bloodstream, and then when it comes into contact with the joint, it can cause the joint to become dysfunctional and look like it isn't part of your self tissue to your immune system. And that's when your immune system starts firing up. And that's why it's so vital, if you have rheumatoid arthritis, to be looking after your gum health, especially if you have this bacteria in your mouth, because as I said, there is lots and lots of research connecting this. And the reason that this bacteria in particular can disrupt the joint and make it look like it isn't part of self tissue is a process called citrullination. And citrullination happens when this bacteria comes into contact with the joint, but it alters the structure of the protein in the joint. And that makes it more immunogenic, which means the immune system is more likely to attack it. And that is why when you are having a test for rheumatoid arthritis, they are actually testing for the anti-CCP antibodies, which are the antibodies which are looking for citrullinated proteins, because they know this mechanism occurs in rheumatoid arthritis. If you are not already looking after your gum health, and I really hope you are, but here are a few ways that you can make sure that you are doing everything you can to support your teeth and gums to prevent this happening to you. And actually, for anybody, if you have inflamed gums, you're more likely to have inflammation systemically, and it could also lead to neuroinflammation and brain inflammation. So looking after your teeth is absolutely paramount when it comes to your health. So here are a few things that you could do. You can use a tongue scraper to clean your tongue every night, and just make sure that's just cleaning your tongue to get rid of any bacteria or yeast that are on your tongue. You can rinse your mouth with 1 tablespoon of coconut oil, which is called oil pulling. You can do it both in the morning and on the evening. And in the morning, it's really great because you've already released a lot of toxins into the gums. So if you use this in a morning, it's going to help to pull those toxins out of the gums. And then you can swill it around your mouth, and it is best to do that for at least 10 minutes if you can, and you can do that whilst you're in the shower. So you can put the oil in your mouth before going in the shower, swill it round, and then just making sure that you spit it out afterwards. You can rinse your mouth with warm water and seawater as well, and then making sure that you are flossing, or you can use a water pick. A water pick is a really good way to get between the teeth, and that can help with your gums. I suggest using a toothpaste which is free of fluoride and any other additives. I use quite a natural toothpaste, but obviously take the advice of your dentist as well. And just making sure that you're brushing your teeth every morning and night, and you're brushing them for a good length of time. You should be brushing your teeth really for 3 to 4 minutes at least every night. So that is something that you can do for your gum health. And obviously that is going to help with your rheumatoid arthritis if that is an underlying contributing factor for you. When it comes to your gut, I honestly believe that testing and knowing your baseline is the most important, because I can sit here and tell you to eat lots of fermented foods like yogurt, kefir, kombucha even, add in, prebiotic foods like garlic, onions and asparagus, and that's all going to be great for your gut, and it really is. But if your gut isn't in the best place at the minute, or if the bacteria are located in the small intestines, then it can lead to more symptoms. And just so you know, when you're bloated, your gut is dysfunctional at that moment in time, and it's more likely to drive inflammation and increased intestinal permeability. So if you feel bloated after eating, then you need to do something about it, whether it's doing a stool test or just taking action yourself and doing everything you can to avoid that as much as possible, even if it means cutting out foods in the short term. But if you are experiencing any digestive symptoms, especially if you have rheumatoid arthritis, it's worth looking into the underlying cause and then addressing that. Because that might be, again, another contributing factor to your health. Even so, I would always encourage you to include lots of fibre-rich foods in your diet if you can tolerate it. So making sure you're eating plenty of fruits and vegetables, especially vegetables. And then again, if you're able to tolerate them, adding in some legumes and healthy whole grains. I really like wild rice and quinoa and buckwheat. You can add those to your foods and they're going to feed those beneficial gut bacteria. When it comes to your gut, omega-3 fatty acids are really important, which you can find in oily fish, flax seeds and walnuts. I can't emphasize this enough, and you've probably heard me say this so many times. I feel like I'm getting known for talking about omega-3s, but they are just so vital. And it's not just about popping a fish oil tablet. It's about eating these in the diet and making sure that you are getting adequate amount from the food you're eating, but also that you're not piling up on omega-6 rich foods, which are found in sunflower oil or seed oil or certain seeds and nuts, because we get so much exposure to omega-6s in our diet, which are pro-inflammatory. We really need to make sure that we're balancing that with omega-3s as much as possible. And then when it comes to rheumatoid arthritis itself, as I mentioned, definitely check out that Nutrition Essentials for Joint Health, because there's a lot of information in there about foods that are important for your joints. So when you have arthritis, you want to make sure that you're including all the foods that are going to be beneficial for your joints. But on top of that, with rheumatoid arthritis, you need to be thinking about the autoimmune element to it, which is why an anti-inflammatory diet is particularly important. So you need to find out in the first instance, well, what is triggering the inflammation? Is it bacteria in my gut? Is it something going on in my gums? Or is it something else entirely, which could be chemical toxicity that's driving inflammation? It could be to do with mold toxicity. It might be to do with having a high viral load. You need to find out what it is for you to help to reduce inflammation in your body. But a good way to do that with diet is eating an anti-inflammatory diet, as I mentioned, including omega-3 oily fish and other sources of omega-3s, but also just making sure that you are eating a really colourful diet and adding those nutrient-rich powders into smoothies and into soups, and just making sure that each meal you are getting an abundance of different coloured fruits and vegetables, plus a really good quality nutrient-rich protein and a good amount of fibre. If you use that rule with every meal, you are going to feel a lot better in the long run, I promise you, regardless of whether there are these other factors at play. But I do think it's particularly important, whether you have an autoimmune condition, that you focus on nutrient density and also anti-inflammatory foods, so foods that are going to help bring down inflammation in the body, and eating a lot of vitamin C rich foods as well, like broccoli, and if you can tolerate them, peppers and citrus fruits, and just making sure you're including a lot of vitamin C as well, because that can be helpful. And I do find that people with autoimmune disease have a higher need for vitamin C. And the other really important antioxidant that is one of the most powerful antioxidants, well, it is the most powerful antioxidant in the body, is glutathione. And that is made from different proteins, which you'll find in collagen, for example, glycine, cysteine and glutamate. And then on top of that, you want to be eating those sulfur-rich vegetables such as the garlics, the leeks, the onions, and they're all precursors to glutathione. And glutathione is extremely important. It's an antioxidant, but it also supports detoxification. So as we're clearing out anything that might have been contributing to the inflammatory response, we need to support our detox pathways, and this is a really good way to do that. And when it comes to lifestyle, regular exercise has been shown to be absolutely vital when it comes to rheumatoid arthritis. It helps to keep the joint lubricated, and it helps to get the vital nutrients to the joints. So engaging in a low impact exercise can be beneficial, like swimming, walking, yoga, and Tai Chi. These are just a few of the exercises that I would suggest incorporating into your life if you have rheumatoid arthritis. But do an exercise that you enjoy, because you're more likely to stick to an exercise that you enjoy. And then getting outside in nature and walking is a really great way to make sure that you continue to move, but it also is going to have a beneficial effect on your nervous system, because it's going to help to calm down the autonomic nervous system, help to bring down that stress response. And there's lots and lots of research to show that forest bathing, being around green and nature, can really help with your stress response. And it certainly helps me. Over the years, I have become obsessed with birds. I never thought this would happen to me. And it's funny, I spoke to my brother who's got multiple sclerosis. And when he came back from Vancouver, he said he's really got into bird watching as well. He probably won't let me saying that, but there's nothing wrong with it. And I just feel so calm and at ease when I am watching the birds in my garden. And I have an assortment of different birds here now who I feed regularly. And it's helped me hugely. It's helped me probably more than some aspects of my diet, because I know that when I am stressed, I'm not healing. And you should always remember that. It's not to make yourself feel guilty, but the calmer you are, the more you are going to recover. So find something you enjoy doing that's going to help to manage any stress in your life. And deep breathing exercises are something that I continually use in my daily life to help lower my stress levels, because even when I'm doing a podcast, or I'm speaking to a client, or I'm doing a video, my stress response is up. So between those sessions, I'm going to be doing some deep breathing exercises to help myself to calm down my body and put myself in that healing state again. And the great thing about the Aura ring that I have, and as you know, I'm not on commission or anything for Aura, but I have my Aura ring, and it now has a function of telling you whether you're in a stress state or a rest state, and there's an engaged and something else in between. And I can see when I'm stressed, and when they first developed this, I was definitely in that stress state more than the restored state. And I've noticed as I've kind of been checking it more, that I'm more focused now on being in that restful state, because I know it's better for my body. And so just be always thinking about that. And there are various other ways that you can help to reduce stress, whether it's from meditation or doing something that you enjoy, like singing or dancing or reading. You need to find out what's right for you, because I can tell you all the best things to do, but if you don't enjoy doing them, then there's absolutely no point doing it. So find something that you enjoy, that you can easily incorporate into your life without much hassle, that is going to help bring down your stress response, and that will have an impact on your symptoms as well, and really help you to recover and reverse those symptoms of arthritis. Because I know what it was like living with joint pain and joint swellings. Not only was I in pain a lot of the time, but it also affected my mobility and the things that I could do. So the sooner that you can get on top of this, or at least be able to move a bit more or do a bit more, the better you're going to be feeling. And then you can do even more for your health, because you can do more exercise, or you can focus more on your hobbies, or you can find work less draining, because when you're feeling fatigued, it's not easy to get through the daytime, and we know that that is a symptom of rheumatoid arthritis as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this deep dive session into rheumatoid arthritis. If you have any questions, then feel free to pop over to my Instagram account, which is at the Autoimmunity Nutritionist. You can also join my free group, the Autoimmune Forum, and don't forget that you can download my free guide, the Autoimmunity Recovery Plan, if you are ready to start making changes for your health. It's a 5-step plan which you can start to introduce into your life today. So I will put the link for that in the show notes. If not, have a fantastic rest of your week, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Thank you very much for joining me today on the Autoimmune Reset. I really hope you enjoyed the discussion, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. And if you liked it, I would hugely appreciate a review on iTunes, as it helps me understand what you like about the podcast and to help share the information with more people. I'm excited to speak to you next time, and remember, you have the power to take the reins on your health. So keep the faith and celebrate the small wins. Until next time.